So it's pivot with kindness.
Okay, welcome to something new that we are trying today, Pivot with Kindness. Now, we'll talk a little bit about what that is and where that has come from. But first off, if you're listening, I just want to say a quick hello. I'm Kim. I am based in London, England. It's my evening, as you can see. We're still in the it's the first of March today, so coming into the spring, and I'm joined with Petra, and I'm super excited to be here. I will share a little bit more about me in a second, but with Petra, who is behind the Pivot with Petra, real passion project of her. So how's it going today? How are you, Petra?
I was looking for that button, you know?
Yeah, you're on
Ah,
mute.
I know. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. So my name is Petra, and I'm based in Ottawa. So it's snowing. Actually, right now it's snowing, and it's 1:15. So I just literally just had my lunch or brunch, if you will. And yes, so Pivot with Petra is my new passion project, which I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But I'm really excited to have this first Pivot with Kindness conversation with Kim, who leads this amazing project called Kindness for Success. So here we go.
Thank you, Petra. So yes, so I am founder of Kindness for Success, which is a coaching business that I set up less than a year ago, but I'm at 11 months actually now. And I work predominantly with working mums who are overwhelmed, exhausted, trying to do all the things and be all the things. And I work with these women to support them sort of flipping this notion of having it all, which, I think we've sort of all grown up with, to actually really defining what their all is. So, what success looks like for them based on their own terms, not what their parents might think or what their friends might think or what society thinks. What is success for them? And the foundational, I guess, enabler of then living that is extending themselves kindness in the same way that they do to others. So it's really about that self kindness and that self compassion. So that's what I'm all about. So Petra, why don't you jump in and share a little bit more about Pivot with Petra?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you were talking, you spoke about working moms, and I think we are aligned there because I am a working mom and I have done this for over 1 decade. And also, something else that I think we are aligned is that you are focusing on kind of like the definition of success, but not necessarily what we get from all these, like, oh, I have a degree, I have a big title, I have lots of education. But really, for me, I look at it as, what does success mean to you? How does that feel for you? Are you looking successful, or do you feel successful? And are
Love that.
you really successful? So, Pivot with Petra is my new passion project, as I said before. And it's inspired by my own journey as a working mother, very ambitious, high achiever, who I would say has been shaped by societal norms of success, which means you need to really work hard, you need to continue pushing and embrace the hustle culture. And after years of doing it, I realized that I need to realign my own life. And this is because after, being a mom for like, I think it was about 5, 6 years, I realized that I'm completely losing myself. And quite honestly, I looked myself in a mirror and I couldn't recognize who I was because I was exhausted. I was tired. Even though like I was receiving all these awards, I was looking like a very successful woman. But inside of me, I was feeling like something is not aligned.
Mm.
And I took that decision about 5 years ago to look for ways to help change the course of my life so that I can feel that I'm living fully and I'm enjoying, the fruits of the work that I've been doing. I've been working so hard to achieve. So my achievements were looking really good, but I wasn't feeling it. I was feeling the burnout, the overwhelm, and really that sense of chaos and misalignment. So I took it upon myself to work on myself, to do the work, to learn how to change the course of my life so that I can be able to redefine success in my own terms. And my friend, I'm going to tell you the truth. That's a journey. I haven't yet arrived at this
Mm.
place where everything is fully aligned, but I've come a long way. And instead of waiting until like every star is aligned and I'm feeling like I have arrived, I just had this really big calling this year to start showing up and to start talking about my journey, sharing it with other working moms in hopes of inspiring possibility for others who may be living what I was living about 5 years ago. And so Pivot with Petra is a journey. Pivot with Petra is my story. And Pivot with Petra is that light that I have been hiding under the table for so long. And I'm looking forward to unveil it and share it with the world because there could be one mom out there who might want to learn from my story. And that's the hope. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, Petra, that's so beautiful. And yeah, just so many, yeah, just so much richness in that. And I think I just noted a couple of things down that really struck me when you spoke there. And I think that piece that you talk about, are you looking successful or are you feeling successful? And I think that's a really pertinent question, for anyone to ask themselves. And I think there can be a real difference with that. And I think, as you say, in sort of the how we're raised and maybe expectations we've had on us either through ourselves, society, with the hustle, then yeah, it can sort of be, well, hang on, she's got a great job, she's got a big house, she's got a lovely family, she's, actually, but what really matters is what's in here, isn't it? And I think if I may, I also loved how you talked about the real, you used the word, you decided to work on yourself, and also that it is a journey. And I think I wholeheartedly agree with that as well. And I think it's I talk a lot about progress over perfection. And you talked about, oh, if you just wait until everything is well, actually we know there's no such thing as perfection, is there? But I think as well, um I think it's super important to, particularly in the work that we are doing, is to show up authentically. And I remember last year someone said to me, as I mentioned, I talk about, having, your all versus having it all. And someone was like, oh, so do you just have your all the time? And I was like, no, no, and there's days, where I'll shout at my children, or I'll, I won't look after myself, or I'll, and again, it's, but I think actually that just shows, us as like we said, we're not the experts in this, but we're just two working moms, have very aligned passions. And actually, perhaps at the end, or maybe on a future one, we can share with anyone listening there. We had some crazy sort of similarities down to colors of things, didn't we, Petra? That were just, but as you say, if we can reach one person that, oh, right, okay, then that's going to be huge. So okay. So, did we want to talk, Ben, I guess a bit, we talked about the sort of the role of, kindness and self-compassion. Do you think we should dive into that?
Yeah, actually, and I'll maybe say something about what I really admire about your work when you talk about self-compassion and kindness. That is something that I struggled with for a very long time, and I haven't really overcome it completely because in my journey as a mom, I I don't know why, but I was just always like giving and like serving because I think that's how I was raised, and putting myself first feels until now like I have kind of learned a little bit more about how to prioritize myself, but I think that's the last thing that would come to mind
Yeah.
because for me, as soon as I became a mom, it really automatically became about others, about especially about your child, right? Like, so this idea of self-compassion is not natural for me.
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
I
mm,
wonder about you, first of all, is it something that comes naturally? And then number two, like, how do you frame self-compassion, and what does that mean? And how does it look like?
mm,
Because it's not enough to tell people self-care is important, put yourself first, without kind of dealing with the issue about how, for example, personally, I don't identify with self-compassion easily.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, so many threads in there, Petra. And I think, to take, I guess, the first part of your question, is self-compassion or self-kindness something that comes easily for me? Also, no. That's a big no. And I have, I guess, experienced times where, I've seen some really negative sides of that, and not doing so. And it's part of why I am so passionate about, I guess, encouraging, not just encouraging working mums to be able to do that for themselves, but to show them actually how it's not a nice to have, that it is, ultimately it's foundational for us, for our families, for, I guess, our network. And I guess if I put a little bit more context around that, often there's an analogy now, isn't there, that it's arguably overused, but about, that we need to put our own oxygen masks on before, we put on others, which in itself feels sort of counterintuitive, doesn't it? But I think for me, kindness is the same. And actually, if you're not showing yourself kindness, then how can you show up sustainably? And I think that's the key word, for those that are most important to you. Now, whether that's your family, whether that's your friends, whether that's, your colleagues, and whatever you're doing in the workplace. And I think I think all too often we feel like, well, oh, it's it's indulgent. And actually I don't have time. And what we see is that actually for a certain time, then yeah, actually we can we can exist, and life can go on, and we'll have times of happiness and all those sorts of things. But actually, if we really want to be present, fulfilled, living that life that is success based on our terms, then that cannot happen if we're not regularly extending ourselves kindness. So one of the things that I I guess speak with some of the mums that I work with that really struggle with that is almost, okay, in the early part, if it's too much to think about, or trying to work towards, showing myself a little bit more kindness, if it helps you to think about, actually, no, I'm doing this for my children. I'm doing this for my, partner. I'm doing this for everyone that is important to me. If that helps to initially um, unlock that, then that can, that can be, I guess, a route in. Um, in terms of I think as well, sometimes, Petra, there's a misconception, isn't there, with showing ourselves kindness, and it like, oh, it's oh, you need to go and have a weekend with your girlfriends, or you need to go and have a spa day. And I'm not arguing that those things aren't lovely, and that they don't play a part. They do. But actually it's around, okay, what are I talk about sort of the micro moments. It could be the I'm going to take 15 minutes at some point in the day to sit alone without my phone and my book and just read. It might be, I'm going to take time and I'm going to give a friend that I haven't spoken to in a while a call. And it could even be watching how we're speaking to ourselves, throughout a given day. So I'll give you an example. I was in central London this week and I got on the wrong tube. And my initial thought was, oh, Kim, you stupid, like, oh, you're so stupid, and now you're going to be late. And actually, it was like, do you know what? Actually, it doesn't matter. And actually, it was quite funny because it was the journey I used to take to where I worked, sort of autopilot. And, I just had a bit of a chuckle. No, it wasn't the end of the world. But little things like that, not so long ago, I would have just berated myself and like, oh, you're so stupid. And like, now you're going to be late. And, the person you're meeting is going to think you're not serious about, all of those sorts of things. And that snowballs. But anyway, I realize I'm sort of, um, yeah, sort of going off on perhaps a little bit of a tangent there now. But what about you, Petra? How do you support I guess, the people you're working with in terms of showing that self-compassion and kindness to themselves?
Absolutely. And I think before I go there, I would want to just point out two things that stood out when you were talking. So the micro moments, I think that's very interesting because as working moms, like one of the things that we struggle with is that we say we don't have time.
Mm,
So the minute we think about self-compassion or like self-care as like something that requires you to pay money, go to, do a spa or go do something major that requires you to spend time, resources, and all of that, then it's kind of like inaccessible. So thank you for framing it in a way that every working mom can feel like this is something that's not out of reach. This is something that I could cultivate for myself. 15 minutes of something that's life-giving. That's really powerful. The second thing that I picked up was self-talk and the power of self-talk, speaking to ourselves, being kind on how we speak to ourselves because I think we are very mean when it comes to the things that we think or say about ourselves. And it's a bit funny that we there are some things that we would never say to someone else, but we can
So
actually
true.
think like we can tell ourselves things like that we cannot say out loud to someone else. And I remember, I think, well, I just painted my office, but I used to have like a little picture that said, be your own cheerleader, which speaks in a way to this idea of being the first person to cheer for yourself, being the first person to extend kindness towards yourself. Because what's the point of being, the most like kind person to other people, almost like a people pleaser, but you're not able to please yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think those 2 points speak very loud to me. And then I'm gonna share also something, the third item, and then I'll talk about what you asked me. So this morning when I was putting my post on LinkedIn, because every Saturday I post about rest, the importance of taking the time and just, resting and doing life-giving things. But I was just there for a few moments this morning and I saw this post. I can't remember who put it out there, but it says, heal because your children don't deserve a broken version of you. And I'm going to repeat that. Heal, my friend, working mom, dear mom, heal because your children do not deserve a broken version of you. Now, that resonates with what you say. You say that for people like me who don't find it naturally to extend compassion towards ourselves, we can do it while thinking that we're doing it for the people we love because we've been kind of conditioned to do it. It's already engraved in us. It's the
Yeah.
easy, low hanging fruit when
Yeah.
it comes to extending kindness to other people. So anytime I am trying to deprive myself of a life giving moment, I will remember that by extending kindness to myself, I am actually doing that for the people that I love, including my children, including my husband, including my friends, including my family. Because in order for me to live fully and to perform well at work, at home, and everywhere else in the community, I need to be the full version of me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great.
That's
Um,
beautiful. I've written that
and
down.
yeah, and so just to try and answer that question that you asked me about the things that I do to extend kindness towards myself. So given that I'm a busy working mom, I have 2 children and I work Monday to Friday for about 7.5 hours. Plus, of course, that's just my actual corporate job, but I also have my other full-time job as a mom here and as a wife, right? Um, the things that I have started doing over the last couple of years is trying to build habits that are sustainable and they're like micro habits. But my strategy has been to map up my day and insert like some good habits within my day. Some of them include self kindness and self compassion. And a particular one that I really love is what I call like the power hour. Basically, that means that the first hour of the day is mine, and so I don't give it to anyone else. Like I don't give it to my employer. Like I just don't give it that first hour. I just give it to myself. So when I rise up and I get out of bed, I set myself up and I start with a few cups of kindness towards me, including sometimes a real cup of like a real, like, warm tea or sometimes coffee, but I'm a heavy tea drinker, so sometimes I'll start with a cup of tea. And I think, well, for me, there's something that's kind of cool about just drinking a warm cup of tea alone and uninterrupted. And it just helps me to set the tone for the day. It depends on the weather. So if it's nice, sometimes within that first hour, I could go for a little walk or a bike ride, or normally I would, before I get outside of the house, I will do like a little devotional, and then I will set my intentions for the day, and then I'll move on. When the second hour of the day hits, of course, all working moms know what happens, right? People start waking up, and then you have to do what needs to be done, and then if you have a job to go to, then you get yourself into that mode and start working. And so I find actually setting my day that way allows me to be fully present
Mm,
and
mm,
to be kind, not just to me but to other people, because I don't just rush through things. And maybe in the future we can talk about this idea of rushing, because that was my best friend, like, for over the years. Like, I was always rushing. I was just rushing. It's like, even when, like, a kid is like trying to bite on a muffin, I'll be like, are you done yet? Like, I
yeah,
just wanna go, go, go.
yeah, go on.
And yeah, like eliminating rush in my life, in a, like, if I want to put it like in a big way, that has been
Mm,
a big win, and a
mm.
really, like, a way of saying, like, you know what, this is a successful way of extending kindness to myself and to others by just eliminating rush in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Do you know, I was reading something just this week, Petra, that really speaks to that notion of rushing in this whole, the busyness epidemic. And it's sort of, almost like, oh, I'm so busy, and like, oh, I'm back to back meetings. And almost there's a, you think in some ways it's almost always, it's sort of seen as a badge of honor, and a world must be really important because you're like all back to back. I haven't got time to go for a wee or have lunch, or but also then I think some people, I think it was a podcast I was listening to, say like, oh, I found myself saying like, oh yeah, me too, because again it's that, oh yeah, I'm successful. Again, it's that, looking successful to feeling successful. Now I'm wondering, Petra, I know when we talked about doing our these pivot with kindness, and we've got a lot of sort of ideas and things that I think is going to go from strength to strength. But I'm wondering, for this sort of first episode, as it were, should we start to bring it maybe to a close, so we can yeah, show kindness to ourselves in terms to my evening, your day, but also to anyone that is listening. We know that time is a gift, and to anyone that is listening, we thank you and are so grateful, as I am so grateful having this conversation. So Petra, is there anything before, I guess, we begin to wrap up for this, that you would like to, I guess, share with me or anyone that might be listening to this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I cannot think about anything else than how they end my daughter's gymnastics class. So this is how it goes. I love no, they don't say I love first. I think they do the love and the gratitude. So they do two things, what they love and what they're grateful for. So for the grateful part, they say, I'm grateful for this environment. I'm grateful for the equipment. I'm grateful for my teacher. I'm grateful for my friends. And hear this one. I'm grateful for myself. And then they repeat the same spiel, but they end with, I love myself.
Oh,
And I think there's another day I went there and they talked about respecting. They used the word respect. So they went through the whole thing saying they respect the equipment, they respect their teacher, they respect everything else. But it always ended with, and I respect myself. So for me, that's how I can end this first pivot with kindness conversation. Thank you so much, Kim, for your time and for allowing ourselves to flow into this conversation so naturally. I can't believe we just met like on LinkedIn very recently,
this is
and
just
maybe we
our
can talk
second
about that
conversation,
some
isn't
other
it?
time. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, there is nothing more beautiful that to end on that than that. So I will just borrow that idea from your daughter's gymnastics class and say I am so grateful for this conversation, so grateful to have met you. I'm so grateful for the opportunity that Pivot with Kindness has given and is going to continue to give. And I love us.
Yes, I love this, and I'm
Yeah,
grateful for us, and I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I think that it speaks to the power of just showing up authentically and like just being there to spread positivity, hope, possibility, and just inspire
connection.
something positive. So I
Yeah.
hope anyone who gets to watch or listen to this would at least smile a little bit and extend a
Oh my
little
goodness, yeah. If we've
kindness.
made someone
So,
smile, wouldn't that be wonderful? Well, look, here is to just the beginning of many more conversations. So we will wish you goodbye, and we will look forward to being back with a Pivot with Kindness soon. So thank you to
absolutely.
everybody
All
out
right. Thank
there.
you so much. Bye. Have a great night.
Bye,
Bye.
bye.